First of all, I will need your cooperation. So this talk was announced as a fishbowl discussion. That's why we do have these chairs here. In order to make it easier for you to participate, what I would like you to do is to move to the front row. Like now. I'm not joking. I have like 3 slides. I really need your brain power. You don't bite? No, I don't bite. So on this stage, I'm usually giving the goodbye session with like 2 to 3 slides and then waving goodbye to everyone. I will try not to do this today. Okay. So the way this works is that I have prepared a couple of questions which you can discuss together with me. In order to discuss with me, I do have a few microphones here. And if you want to come up on stage and volunteer, there's a way over there, right up here. There are stairs where you can come up. But now let's go through the topics that we want to dive into. How many Apache committers do we have in the room? Okay, decent knowledge. Members? Contributors? Okay, good. So most of you should know a few tricks on turning your downstream users into committers and finally into ASF members. Why would you want to do that? Of course, you want to grow your project. You want to make it independent of your particular individual or your particular company, much as we heard in the previous presentation. So what do I personally count as contributions? I count something like documentation patches. We've got someone from OpenOffice here, something like translations count as well. User support counts. Code patches, of course, but also social media outreach, press coverage, meetup organization. So my first question, where I need volunteers to help me figure that out, is where and how do you reach downstream users? Can I have 2 to 3 people here? 1 chair is supposed to remain empty. So the way to switch this on. Maybe you want to introduce yourself very quickly.
Hi everyone, I'm Justin. I've been involved in the Apache Software Foundation for about 8 years. I mentor a lot of projects and I'm currently the VP of the Apache Incubator.
I'm Max. I became interested in the Apache Software Foundation some years ago through my work on Flink and Beam, both Apache projects. And yeah, I'm also nowadays interested in how the foundation works and might be mentoring some new project in the future. Yeah, that's it.
So, first question is, where do you reach for your projects, downstream users? Where do you go? And if anyone here in the audience has anything to add, just come up on stage and take one of the empty seats. As soon as we have 4 people here, these 2 guys are free to go down again. So if you want to do them a favor, come on up.
Help us!
We're lonely.
So how do you reach your users? Where do you go? Do you go for ApacheCon? Do you go to meetups? Where do you find them?
You want me to go?
Well, the most straightforward way to find downstream users, I suppose, is on the user mailing list of an Apache project. That is, if your project already has users. Otherwise, I suppose conferences are a great place. I mean, tricky question.
I was going to go with the mailing list as my first answer. That was the first thing that came to me. But I would also say other Apache projects, other mailing lists as well. So you can often post to another mailing list and say, hey, I've got this problem, it's sort of related to this, is anyone interested? So.
can also hand the microphone over.
I'm Michael from the Apache OpenOffice project, and we have different channels to meet our users. We go to free software events like Frostcon in Germany, but also in Brussels and in Eindhoven in the Netherlands. That's the where we found our users, but we can't recruit any new users because they use it, the visitors of such events. But we also have mailing lists, especially for users, even in native language, so they can ask questions. That's the one thing. There's also a forum and other ways. And yes, that are the main channels where we meet users. Yeah.
Uwe, maybe you want to join and tell us how Lucene does it.
Okay, I'm Apache Lucene committer, developer, PMC member, and so on. I think to come back to your thing and your problem, I think you said on the conferences you have mostly users, but I think especially for the OpenOffice, the users and the developers are very, very different somehow. So it's very hard to get. So it's much easier for something like Lucene, which is a development library on its own, to get new users because they also program somehow, and because of that, it's much easier to get them into contributing. But one thing I would say here, what brought us a lot of new contributors was, for example, since the infrastructure of Apache was making the GitHub integration much better now. And since you see all the projects which are taking place in Git, also on the GitHub infrastructure, and they can send pull requests which make it easier, that was really a push forward.
Okay.
Yeah, but we don't need, we need developers, but we need a lot of more skills. We need people who make documentation, we need people who make user support to other users, and so we can recruit there. And at FOSDEM, we hopefully to become new developers, but it's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Okay, I know that Beam is doing very well with that, so that might be a question for you. What kind of mentoring helps raise the level of user participation? What are you doing in order to move people from being just a mere user towards being a contributor and a committer?
Yeah, I think at Beam we're doing an okay job onboarding new users, helping out users and onboarding them in such a way that they can contribute back to the project. I mean, the first thing I guess that you have to do when you want to engage with your users is that you're friendly on the mailing list. You try to help out them, and you're not saying like, go read the manual, right? Just figure it out, you know, it's somewhere written, you know, just read the source code, it's in the comments, you know, or maybe not even, just read the code. Now, of course, you try to be helpful, and you try to have generally good documentation, good practices, so it's accessible for users. And then generally what we try to do is that we use Jira a lot. So I don't know if you all know Jira, it's like a bug tracker, and Apache Software Foundation has an instance of this. So whenever there's a question, we try for the user to articulate the question and document it in Jira, and then we also encourage them to assign themselves to it and submit a patch if they can do it. Otherwise, we mentor them to give them some starter points, or maybe point them to the right person to talk to, so that person can get some more knowledge of how things work. And generally, we have a contribution guide also, where we have some guidelines how to submit patches or documentation, so we don't have to explain everything again and again. Yeah, I don't know. We try to be open-minded. We try to, speak at conferences, meetups, promote Beam, so that it's more attractive for people that they see that we are open to contributions.
Justin,
Yeah.
you're in the incubator. What do you tell people if they ask you how to get downstream users to a level where they contribute and where they become committers? How do you keep people motivated?
I think actually making people committers motivates them. And I think a lot of projects set the bar, the contribution bar, far too high. And you'll get someone, they'll come along, they'll put in a couple of pull requests, they'll get a friendly welcome, and they'll think, oh, this is great. And then months pass and they lose interest because it's too hard. So reducing the committer bar.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, actually, we've been doing that as well in Beam. Like, we used to, because Beam is a kind of or has a researchy vibe to it, so it can be very intimidating. And in the early days, I would say that the bar was really high to becoming a committer. Nowadays, we say, like, if person shows like continuous interest, but not like over years, like over several months, and the contributions are valuable, whatever it is, we use code or documentate, or even fixing grammar mistakes or typos on the web page, then we try to, we start a thread continuously on the private mailing list about those people, and then we send out an initial encouragement email after maybe a couple weeks, and then we tell them, you could maybe improve on that area, or we say, oh, everything's fine, just keep on contributing, we love what you're doing. And then eventually, there's no fixed time frame, but after some months, we make that person a committer.
And if anyone hasn't seen the documentation that Beam has created on how they do all of this, it's fantastic.
You're asking for a documentation of all this process?
You have great documentation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thanks.
On how to engage your users and make them committers and so forth.
Yeah.
What does Lucine do in terms of mentoring people through the process? And for a small housekeeping note before we come to this answer, just to give you some time to think about it, I saw that some people came here in late, so you may not be familiar with what we are trying to do. If you want to give these people to get a chance to go downstairs again and get a seat somewhere comfortable, come up on stage, join the discussion and answer questions instead of these people. So looking at them, I'm fairly confident that they would be happy if someone else would step up and add to the discussion. Also, during one question, you can do switching. Okay. Over.
Okay. There's one thing you could always do. Of course, you can have your own conference for your own project. So you know that about the Berlin buzzwords, which is one way to get your users, but that doesn't help them to necessarily help them to contribute. I think you should also make it easy to them to contribute. As he said before, the bar should not be too high. At the moment, there's another thing which is very important, and I figured that out when looking at the number of open issues in the Solar project. We have a number of open issues and pull requests, and nobody takes care. And of course, that scares away the people, so you should really start, and if it's easy pull requests, to just don't do too much review, just pull them in if they are fine, to just make the people happy that they have contributed something. I see that currently. And if it's a more complicated issue, maybe the community should also take place in the issue, because the second thing that I'm seeing is that for some issues, they are very, very complex. Only one committer is taking care of that. And if you want to get those people as committers at some point, you should also make them work in the same style of communication that you're using in the project. So it should not be a face-to-face in the Jira issue. That's something I see to get it better.
Do you want to add?
Yeah, hello. I'm Andreas, and I'm not connected to ASF in any way. I wanted to add a little bit how I get other projects known, small projects. It's mostly in lightning talks on conferences when there are only 5 minutes for each project and everyone is coming shortly after each other so people can listen to it. And they are not bored. They are not afraid to listen to 1 hour and without any result. So you can just look and pick your project you're interested into. This very nice way to see what's new, what people are doing in the community. And another thing is when a user-to-user support. What I realized is the frequency of the answers and how you answer, the tone of the answers is very important. When there are from 10 questions, only 1 answered after 24 hours, people stop asking questions and people stop giving answers because everything is empty, nobody's reading it, nobody's taking care, and this is a spiral which is always getting deeper and deeper, and so it's important to give answers, and with these answers to give the tone of the whole conversation. So, like RTFM, and if you see someone RTFM, then just give another answer with the correct answer, and not just, oh, okay, it was a fault, but ignore it. And this is important to give the community and everyone the feeling that his questions will be asked, and that when you put work into it, your answers will be read.
Okay. Any other experience with getting people to become a committer? Any legal help that you can think of that you could give? Any technological help? Thinking of making build system more accessible?
Yeah, so I also agree with, that's what I also wanted to say before, to have more people responding to issues and make the turnaround time shorter. There's also something going on our side to make the build system easier, because if you have to install something like 25 tools first to do a release build, then people are really scared away to do any contributions, and that also comes in the same. It goes in the same direction, like putting the bar too high. So sometimes you can accept a simple patch without adding an additional test, just because the GitHub pull request verifier verifies that there needs to be a new test. You can, in some cases, you can still accept that and maybe add the test on your own to help the user. So to enforce him to work together with the others, or can you make suggestions? But as I said, I always tell to myself, stop the Uwe Schindler like of answering, because I also have sometimes this a little bit German harsh approach on some issues, but that's something.
We have two steps done. The one step is going to Git. We hope, it was a short time, but we hope to get more developers which are familiar with Git. And the other step is also a technical one. We try to improve our translation tools. So it's more comfortable for the translators, and they see, and we hope that they see earlier the results of their translation, so they get a positive feedback. Hey, it's important what you do, and we try to insert it in our code very soon. I think that's important for this person. Yeah, and we are happy to get even translators for languages we never heard before. Anybody knows what Kannada is? No, Kannada is a South Indian language.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to second what Uwe said about pull requests. I think it's really important if somebody is contributing for the first time to not give that person a hard time. Like you mentioned, maybe merge this like as it is, but add the test yourself, or fix that typo that was in that PR instead of going back and forth again for every little change, because that's gonna scare people off, because it takes way too much of their time, and it's way too much commitment, so they won't open a pull request next time. They will just do it in their fork. Yeah. In terms of ease of use of the build system, and I think at Beam we are kind of very lucky because we have some folks from Google also contributing, and they do a really good job setting up the Jenkins infrastructure with getting the tests to execute fast and always triggering correctly depending on which module you'd make the change, so you don't have to run all the tests all the time. And they also have something in place called a community metrics, which gives us an overview of the number of pull requests, number of commits, GitHub activity, and so also like tests how often are they flaky or failing. So that's all very useful, but obviously maybe not all the project can afford to have this sophistication in the build system. So, but one thing I wanted to say, to just change perspective here, it's also you also have to see it from the other side as a user that wants to be contributor. Don't be afraid to ask questions and just write on the mailing list, hey, I was trying this out and it doesn't really work, or what does that mean? It feels it's always a high, a barrier to do that, but once you do that, you find that there are always people willing to answer, and they're really excited once you start using their software.
Just one more human who came up.
No worry. I'm presenting today Apache Ignite project. It's a memory database, and I want to share some practice which I use on my project for onboarding for newcomers, for example. I remember how to be contributor, it was not so many time ago, and how it's difficult to prepare your own PR, how many time you should wait, when it will be reviewed. After that, TS will be built. After that, it will be merged, but somebody broke the master and you couldn't merge your PR, etc., etc., etc. And I saw one practice in Apache Spark project. I don't remember exactly. Maybe it was Holden Karau who created newbie tickets in Apache Spark project and mentored them for I don't know, for 1 or 2 years. After that practice, I created in Apache Ignite a set of newbie tickets and newbie++ tickets for people who already contribute in the second time, and a small document how to extend the model where I am a maintainer, for example, ML module, and I know how to help people understand how to extend the code written by myself. It was really helpful for first 2 contributors who were invited after the same conference into the community, and they prepared and result the two first newbie tickets. After that, they asked about else, and after 1 year of some kind of mentoring, they became committers. I think that without my help, they could leave the community because the model was maybe not so good at the start, and the code wasn't clear, and so on. But I starting my own mentorship for 2 persons, and did this before they became committers, and it was good practice. And today I'm ready to get newcomers. If you're interested in Apache Ignite ML model, go to me. I will create newbie tickets for you specially, and we will go. I'm sorry for the marketing speech, but yes, it works, and I'm trying to inspire my community and other community members in Apache Ignite, in Apache Kafka, etc., to share this practice, to create newbie tickets, to create onboarding documents, not only how to contribute with link to dev list. It's a good start point for a man, for a woman who is an Apache Ignite committer too, all these links. But for the person who have no contribution yet, the how to contribute, it's not the clear document. It's about our internal practice. And I think that in each model, in each project, we could provide, first of all, newbie tickets, and the second, we could provide small documents. They can be outdated sometimes, but how to add minor example. It could be template example, or it could be, I don't know, template feature which was merged a year ago, I don't know. But it can be, and people can start learning from this point. Okay, thank you for listening.
One of the persons who support our project, Patricia, has a very good idea. She make a blog post on her Apache blog, and she says, "Hey, what's about the retired persons, with a large experience? Maybe they can help us." And she wrote it down better when I can say it here on the podium. Why it's a good idea for retired persons to help us or help Apache as a whole, because they have so much experience, they have so much skills. And so the problem is then you have to deal with that persons. Okay, I'm an older one. I'm waiting for my retirement. I'm counting the years, not the days, not the months, okay, but the years. So maybe we have to look not only for young people. Young people are very valuable, yeah, but also look where are other people who can help us.
There's also one other thing. If you not only look at the young people, but also on the younger people. So there's also something which is organized by Inside Apache, which is the Google Summer of Code. And we, for example, had some students so what we did, we had some ideas long in the past when something needed to be implemented, but we had no real plan how to do that. So we just had an issue in the issue tracker, and we marked those with a tag, and then we asked students to look into that, and the only backside of that is because it's students, you need a very, very close You need to be very, very helpful. You have to mentor them. But at the end, not all students are perfectly fine to be a committer at some point, but it works. We also had one project where we removed the code after the summer of code because it was not really successful at the end. But that's also a possibility to get new people in. And I think if you are not using Google Summer of Code, the other example project is Apache Tika. Nick is not here, but one of the PMC members is a professor at university, and he always asks his students to do some patches, which is very funny at the end, because then you get suddenly mailing list posts with dear Professor Madman. I have, because I didn't yet get that it's a community, but so it's also a possibility to get new people in to go to universities and ask them as a university project.
I would like to see a quick show of hands. How many of you are contributing to Apache part-time, paid part-time? Mish. Sometimes you do have a project at work where you can contribute, sometimes not. How many are that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Now hands up if you are contributing paid full-time. Quite a few more. Okay, so that's what the next question is about. How can we improve the experience of those volunteers in our projects that only have time episodically? Like they do have a patch that they have to work on for, say, a project that they are on now, for say a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Then you see nothing. And another month or two later, they appear again and work in bursts. How do you deal with that in your projects? And again, invitation to come up here so that these people can sit down comfortably downstairs. How do you work with this imbalance of people having time?
Because I'm not a full-time employed for whom paid the Apache contributor, I could share the small tip. In our project, I'm trying to ask for newcomers or for contributors how much time are you comfortable to commit to Apache project, and for example, how are you going to spend your time? Maybe in this month a lot, maybe in the next month not so many. People answer this question, and I put this information, I don't know, for my own private table or share on the dev list sometimes, because it's very useful information. I think that dev list is good place to share. Then somebody, I don't know, welcoming, first time, we could discuss it in this thread for the new contributors, I think. And remember that and update this information from time to time. For example, ask the person to update this information in this initial thread. Sometimes it works.
I think it's a very good question. How do we deal with part-time people who just contribute in their free time or part-time?
I'm not so much only about free time, but also someone who's paid to do that, but who has other work to do as well. Think of a consultant doing work for Lucene.
Oh yeah. Well, if you're a consultant, then I mean, well, I think it's about the quality of your contributions and not about the quantity. So if you want to contribute to Beam, like just use it, just go on the website, read the contribution guide, read the documentation, and you can do that. I mean, you can do that 1 hour a day or 1 hour a week, and I'm sure still you will find something to contribute eventually. I mean, if you have a need for Beam, right? And maybe otherwise you should go to another project. So I mean, that's important that you actually, you use the stuff and you care about it. Then I think you will find something, no matter how long you work on this. And I think in Beam, we don't care about how much time exactly somebody spends. We just care about continuous work, but not like every week or every month, just continuous, and then the quality of the work. And yeah, It doesn't have to be a pull request with 1,000 lines of code chain. It can be very small. Yeah. But it is a challenge actually for like the project management committee to always recognize continuous contributions if they are not on a very frequent basis. And that's something I care about, and I try to spot those people and make them or propose them to become a committer.
There's one new human here.
Hello, my name is Fokko Driesprong. I'm a committer on Avro, Parquet, Airflow, and Druid incubating. I don't think people don't get paid. They don't get money, but they get a lot of knowledge. I think doing contributions to a project is really helpful. You learn a lot from it, like how you structure the projects, maybe some work on CI/CD. It's really interesting to see how the different projects do it and how you can either evolve the process, make it even nicer. Also, at some projects I see a lot of still pull requests, and then someone else comes by and says, "Oh, I really need this. Can we merge this?" And then, we have this comment still pending. Like one of the committers said, "Yeah, we need a test." And I said, "Okay, please pull in this guy's his fork. Just cherry pick the commit and do your. Maybe you can add a test, and then we can just merge these two commits by the initial contributor and then the guy who wrote the test." That also works very well, at Airflow at least. So that really works for us.
Uwe, how's that for you?
So basically, I would say there's something what you already mentioned, so I mean him, before was that the steadiness of contributions, so always in every project, and I think that's just standard. So people, after they get committed, they are very, very, very active, and then when time goes by, people get less active in contributing code. But what's very important in that case is that the people are turning somehow in persons who have a lot of knowledge, but they don't write many code anymore, but they can take care of new issues coming in or helping to create a pull request. Or that's something. So I think you cannot only count the number of commits somebody is doing. So it should be, if you work on the infrastructure, for example, currently we are rebuilding our build system. There are no new features coming out, but it makes a life much easier for the others. That's something where some people are spending a lot of time. And then about when you do it, so sometimes you also get paid for it. Also, if you are a consultant, because you have some company that needs a special feature, and then you need to get it in. Though that's also one possibility. But on the other hand, we also have committers in Lucene which are really paid to only commit to Lucene, and the same for Solar. It's the same project, but you can clearly see, and there are a lot of people that are doing only part-time, which is perfectly fine.
Are there any issues with that you've been spotting in your project? Or in other projects that are not supposed to be named here?
Yeah, the problem is if there are companies involved, you always have a little bit of problems. And for Lucene, this is, of course, there are two competing products and companies behind that. So there's some issue. It also affects which code parts are the commits about, and if this is not somehow, if only the same people are taking care of a specific part of the code, it's not really good. So it should be that every committer should have an overview about everything and maybe also commit to something else. And that's, for example, currently a little bit of a problem between Solar, Lucene, and Elasticsearch, which is outside of the Apache Software Foundation, though. Are
there any best practices or patterns for such types of problems that you can share with other projects within the ASF, where you think we've had this issue, we've found the solution, and this works? Or is this a proof the situation?
We don't yet have a solution for that. It's very hard. Do you want to say?
Yeah, I want to say something. There's another free office suite, and we still are good friends in some way. And these, we are. Some of us are friends of some of them, and there are people who contribute to both projects. So there's a great friendship, only love and friendship. But the thing is, this project is the developers working in 2 or 3 companies. The main development work is done by developers which are employed at the companies, and so we can compare. It has great advantages to have paid developers, but it has also risks and disadvantages. And so it's a very good thing to compare that. You learn a lot of things, especially about freedom.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, if you're a part-time contributor, actually Apache projects are a really good way to eventually become a full-time contributor. Because, I mean, once you have the knowledge, once you're a committer, you actually become interesting for companies, at least that's my experience, because they want to have someone who is committer, and they want to have someone, of course, knowledgeable also about the open source project and open source in general. So then you might actually, apply for some other job, or somebody might write you to work on that open source project full time. That can happen.
Yes, it's the same at us. But the problem is, if you are a good committer at Apache OpenOffice, one of the companies of the other project says, "Come to us. You are a good guy." Okay. So we are proud to have such good persons, but it doesn't fit our needs.
I think that's a pattern that I also see with many other development projects, that as soon as people get employed, sometimes their contributions actually drop. I don't know if you've seen that.
They have their internal fork, or
not only internal fork, but also like it's being deployed internally. So they have to work on the product which uses the project, and not that many patches flow back, because of what I've been told is this project is just so good that we don't have to do any patches. Someone's smiling there.
What I see with a lot of projects where like full-time people working on, they grow so big. So especially like if you have the deep internals of some big projects, it's really hard to work in it as a part-time contributor, because you need to have invest so much time in reading it up, and then you start like an email on the thread, and then.
Are there things that would help you to keep up? Say regular summaries, or things being pointed out as important, or stuff like that?
Yeah, what really helps is like these syncs. So for Parquet, there's like this sync meeting where they just go through all the pending issues, and then they also like put like a summary on the dev list, and that really works. Yeah.
Okay. Welcome.
Hi. My name is Ayjamal. I'm a committer in Apache Airflow, and this is my first time to meet Foko, though we exchange like million emails probably. Nice to meet you. Yeah, but really answering the first question, okay, how you like attract these part-time contributors, and how do you motivate them?
How do you make it easier for them if there's like...
I would say the basic is just psychological safety and friendliness in the community. So I am one of the privileged ones who contribute to open source as as a day job, right? I get paid to do that. But I had choice to contribute, let's say, to Airflow, to Spark, or to Beam, because there are a lot of teams at Google that work with open source. But then, I tried to engage with different, but eventually, naturally, it became that I focus on Airflow a lot because first, the project is very young. There's a lot of things that I can do, and my contributions are very impactful. But second of all, it's it was very, from the very beginning, the community was super, super friendly. Hey, Jamal, this is so great that you're doing that. Keep doing that. And that was really good encouragement. And yeah, that's how I ended up mostly full-time on Airflow right now. And I think that's very important. And being friendly and just recognizing small contributions, not only code contributions, but non-code. I do non-code stuff and I'm committed for doing non-code things. And yeah, it's been a great journey. Thank you for being part of it, Foko.
Thank you.
So what I've seen is that sometimes it's hard to find those non-code contributions. How do you solve this issue in your projects?
How do we...
So it's very easy to see if someone makes a lot of commits. It's very easy to see if someone does a lot of pull requests. How do you spot people who, say, organize meetups? How do you find them?
Okay, I can speak only from my experience, but so the people, the PMC of Airflow, I think they were very good at recognizing the work that people do. They don't look only at the GitHub history or commits history. They actually look at people who are actually doing work. I don't know, doing meetups, putting hours, writing emails and connecting people, making bridges and doing a lot of glue work that doesn't really get registered. But they were really good about that. And I think you need to have that kind of voice in your PMC and in your yeah, because I think that culture comes from the PMC mostly and the committers. If there's someone who advocates for recognizing such work, I think people learn and people hey, yeah, actually that's true, we should be doing that. And that's what I try to do. For example, if I see other people in Airflow community, I always try to send encouragement email. If yeah, don't be afraid to send your first email. Don't be afraid to express your doubts. If you're you have to have I mean this you have to enable others, and I think that's important.
Uwe, how do you in Lucene spot non-code contributions? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, we also, at some point, there was an external document about how to use Apache Solr, and this was included into the code base. At the beginning, it was only in the wiki, but now you have all this converted to ASCII doc, and it's now also in the main repository of that. And we have committers which were just getting committers because they were doing the work, and now our PMC chair is this person who started the whole thing. So actually, you don't need to donate code, and at some point, if you have the documentation, if you ship it together with the main source distribution, then you also invite a lot of more people doing code stuff.
So as a closing word, because I believe we're running out of time, can we just go once through the round and you share what kind of contributions count towards becoming a committer? We had documentation in your case and code.
So
what else?
What other contributions?
Maybe one word each.
First. I think meetups is always a good contribution if you're organizing meetups.
Okay, who else?
there are some points. At Apache OpenOffice.org, you can become a committer without writing any line of code. Because if you need the committer status for moderating a mailing list, you get the committer status if you want to moderate the mailing list. That's quite easy. And I was very surprised when they asked me to become a member of the PMC. I don't write any line of code. What's that? Okay, but you are organizing booths. Okay, I said okay. If you want me, yes, and so on. It's very important, I think, to say to the people that their commitments are very valuable. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's not my mother's language, English, but maybe for 80% of all men also not.
So what other contributions do you count?
I would say documentation is very, very important. There are few, I also really like designers. I want to have more designers in Apache projects because a lot of Apache projects have really bad websites or really bad logos, and it's I know where the problem is coming from.
Yeah, I think that's really important. So especially maybe Lucien's even it's really technical, but for Airflow it's also the idea is that not only developers can build these Airflow DAGs, but also less technical people are able to piece these things together. Therefore, I think it's so for me. I'm already 4 years involved in the project, and when I read the documentation, I think, okay, yeah, it makes sense. But for someone new who looks at the documentation, says, yeah, it's in the wrong order, and not even writing documentation, but maybe even just reshuffling it, making some logical sense out of it, had a new website that's being developed. I think that's really valuable, and that's really the key of adopting a greater community and not only the developers in case of Airflow then. Yeah.
Thank you. So first of all, let's thank those people who were courageous enough to come up and help me. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. I will be having coffee outside, so if you have any questions, you can ask me, but I believe these people will be here as well. And likely they have no more knowledge than I do. Thanks for being here.